Hi, I'm Christina, and this is a book review of Universality by Natasha Brown. So this is her brand new book. It was published in 2025, and the reason I picked it up is because I absolutely loved her debut novel, which was called Assembly. So the reason I read that book was because it was shortlisted for the Orwell Prize for political fiction in 2022, and I absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star read. One of the best books that I read on that prize list, and one of the best books I read in the year in which I read it. And I knew that I was very excited to read whatever she published next, and that is this one. So this is her second novel, and I really enjoyed it. Now, similar to Assembly and my book review of that one, I said I don't want to tell you too much about it because it's a very short book, and it's one of those books I think you just want to go into, not know too much about, and just experience it for yourself. And I think the same is true of this one. The other book was 100 pages. This is just over 150 pages. They are very short books, but they do pack a punch, especially in such a short number of pages and such a short number of words. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit, and the rest I will just leave to you. So basically, this book starts as somebody is hit over the head with a solid gold bar, which you can see from the front of the cover. So the setting is a farm in Yorkshire, and an illegal rave is going on. It's COVID times, which is why the rave is illegal. And also the people who are living in this house, they do not own the house. They're kind of squatting, and they're a group of anti-establishment people, kind of an anarchist movement, if you will. So it's getting a little bit out of hand, and there is a solid gold bar on the mantelpiece in this farmhouse, and somebody takes it and then whacks someone over the head with it, and that is the start of the novel. And then essentially you follow the story from there, and you follow lots and lots of different characters in this story. So in the first one we basically just followed our main character, whereas this one we're following lots and lots of different people. And I'm not going to tell you any more, actually. I'm just gonna leave it there. You basically follow along what happens in this story. Now, I will say, when I started to read this book, I was actually really surprised. I was reading that first chapter going, this is completely different from her first novel. I'm really surprised. I thought I was getting myself into some kind of murder mystery, which didn't really seem to be her genre or the themes that she explored in her first novel. So I thought she was just doing completely something different. But when you continue reading, it all makes sense, and the themes are somewhat similar. She definitely writes books that you would consider political, and I would not be surprised if this one also finds its way to the Orwell Prize for political fiction. In her debut novel, Assembly, she explored themes such as race, identity, class, wealth, belonging, and in this one she explores similar themes. I would say class and wealth are very big themes in this story. Race is also a theme, and identity, and the media and like politics in general is a big theme in this. And I really enjoyed it. Now, I will say, I gave Assembly 5 stars, and the reason for that was it just packs such an emotional punch. It really hit me hard emotionally. I was so connected to our main character, and I just wanted the best for her, and the themes that it explored and the topic that she's dealing with is very close to my own heart, and I have my own experience with a loved one. So that really hit me hard. Whereas this one, I would say, it didn't pack the same kind of emotional punch for me, which is why this one is a 4-star read and that was a 5-star read. That one just really got me. It was so emotional. It was brilliant. This is good, but like I say, it doesn't have the emotional punch. This one made me think, which was great. I love it when a book makes me think, and it definitely does pack a punch, and it really did make me consider how I viewed all these characters. So essentially you're told what happens to this man. He gets hit over the head with the gold bar, and it's framed as a narrative, and you take it to be true, you take it at face value. And then throughout the rest of the story, you're following other characters, other people who are somewhat involved in this story for whatever reason. And you kind of see the truth shift, if you will, or the truth evolve, or everyone has their own perception of the truth, essentially. So just to touch on the themes of class and wealth, there is one situation when one of our characters is hosting a dinner party with her university friends. Now, they've kind of lost touch a little bit. They haven't really been in each other's lives. And I think it's safe to say that when you're in university, you're kind of in this bubble of people and you're all living this shared life event. You might be studying the same course, for example, or you might be living in the same university halls, for example, and that's how you forge groups. Or you might be in a particular team, like a sports team or something, for example, and that's how you make friends. And all of these themes, such as class and wealth, might not be so obvious then because you're in this shared university bubble. However, once you graduate and you come back into the real world and it's time to get a job, for example, it can kind of highlight the difference between class and wealth. So our main character in this little section kind of struggled after university to find a job, whereas some of the other people who kind of maybe had more wealth behind them, might be part of a different class system, had a lot more opportunities than she did just because of, family connections or friend connections. And there's all of those different types of things that you would have to consider, where while you're at university probably aren't an issue, but as soon as you enter the real world, you see that some people might have better opportunities than you purely from their class and their wealth and their background, for example. So that's some of the themes we explore with that. And we also kind of explore class and wealth in terms of when we're at the farm and we have this kind of anti-establishment people. I would say they would consider themselves kind of outside of society. I don't know if they would even consider themselves part of a class system. And, wealth isn't always that important. Lots of them don't have jobs. It's like this community aspect, very much against the government, against capitalism, against how the majority of people live their lives, essentially. And it's found out that the person that owns the farm is a very wealthy banker. Now, when we meet the banker, he himself wouldn't consider himself particularly wealthy. He isn't a billionaire, for example, but he will have a couple of £1 million to his name, shall we say, in assets. So he's more of a millionaire. So we kind of see the difference between people. We have a group of people who are kind of anti-establishment, anti-capitalism, don't care about money. None of this is important. That's not what's really important in life. Then we have this character of the banker who is, to most people, quite a wealthy man and in quite a position of power, and we have lots of people in here too. So yeah, there's lots of discussions on class and wealth. We also have discussions on the media. So the media is quite a big theme in this one, and I really like the way she touched on some things which were quite interesting. So in here, she's talking about how media today oftentimes is about clicks and how many people are kind of viewing your content, and then maybe not even the people necessarily reading the newspaper articles, but then the buzz that surrounds it and how the media kind of churns itself. If something is kind of newsworthy and people find it exciting and interesting, it gets a lot of buzz on social media and a lot of clicks, and the kind of the way the media works these days. And then she refers it back to how the media worked in the 90s and how it was completely different, and that is the media of my childhood. And she said then that newspapers back then were more about giving you free seed packets, or giving you a free CD, or giving you like beautiful collector's edition photos of Princess Diana. And I remember that was the media and the newspapers of my childhood. I remember my parents buying newspapers and getting free CDs and getting free seed packets, for example. And yeah, that's not what the media does these days. It's all about clicks and advertisements and being relevant and then gaining popularity on social media and like causing a buzz. It's quite a different kind of world. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting to explore that kind of theme of the media in kind of present day society. So just kind of touching on the theme of politics, one of the characters in this story is kind of one of the people that is a spokesperson for maybe political ideas or those kind of ideologies. And that's how they make money. And sometimes they say things just to be relevant or just to be explosive or just to get a reaction. And there are kind of people out there now who are kind of spokespeople for certain movements, you would say. And sometimes they are just being reactionary, and sometimes they are being explosive in a way to make people take note, and sometimes it would seem to be just to further their own interests and further their own fame. and further their own way of making money and making themselves relevant. And then talking about how sometimes these people's opinions might not make sense logically, so it might seem that they kind of shift from left to right wing politics, or they shift back and forth between certain movements that might not make logical sense. And sometimes it's more about the fact that they're trying to be relevant and they're trying to make the masses sit up and think, yes, I agree with you, or no, I absolutely don't agree with you, I completely disagree. And sometimes, yeah, their opinions might be quite polarizing, and it might be difficult to actually sit down and go, well, what do you actually believe? When sometimes it's more about just trying to be famous, make money off the personality that you have become, and how that's kind of maybe getting more prevalent in our society. And maybe as well, when we're talking about politics, maybe going back to like the 90s, like more my childhood, things were slightly more easier to see. Like there was a lot more newspapers that were right-wing newspapers, there were newspapers that were left-wing newspapers, and maybe things are shifting a little bit now. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting. It really did make me think, and especially when you see a little bit more of the character who owns the farm where the illegal rave is taking place, and we hear more about the solid gold bar and what it actually means and why he purchased it and what the gold bar represents metaphorically. And I won't tell you more about it because you can just experience that for yourself, but just how maybe it's more about hoarding wealth in a time of uncertainty, for example. So yeah, it was good. I originally thought the gold bar would be kind of a murder weapon, but that isn't quite where we go with it. It's a little bit more than that, I think you can say. So yeah, it definitely made me think. It was an interesting read, and made me consider so many different things as I was reading this book. Like I said before, I do personally prefer Assembly. I absolutely love that one. That's one of my favourite books of all time now. So this was a great read. I enjoyed it, but it's not quite up there for me as one of my favourite reads of all time. So if you have read this book, I would love to know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Or if you've not read it but I've made you want to, definitely let me know that too. And if you have read Assembly, her debut novel, definitely let me know what you think of that one. And if you've not, I will leave my book review below on that one in case you're interested. I am always kind of spoiler free in my book reviews unless I tell you I'm going to go into spoilers. So yes, thank you so much for watching. It goes without saying that I am very excited to read whatever Natasha Brown publishes next. I really like her as an author. I think she's really interesting and she has a lot of big ideas that she packs into a tiny little package. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.